Welcome to episode 2, Man of Courage. First one is Man of God, and this is a man of courage. And are you? Are you a guy that lives your life courageously? Or do you take the easy way out? Or you just don't look for challenges and struggles and whatever? I don't know. St. Joseph. This is being made in the year of St. Joseph 2021. And not everybody thinks of him as a courageous explorer, adventurer. And I know why. I never did. You know why? It's the statue that everybody has in their churches of Joseph holding a flower. And, you look at that and you don't think, oh, like, that guy's got guts. But if you really look at his story, the kind of man he was, what did he do that was so courageous? Well, first of all, the way he takes in Mary and sacrifices himself to make a home for her and to be married to her, knowing who she is and what her mission is. Okay? And she's pregnant. She's pregnant, and then they got to go to Bethlehem. So he takes his pregnant wife, who's due any day, on a donkey, and they go up to Bethlehem. Can't find any place to stay. Okay? He sets it up in a barn. He probably went up there with no money, because there's nothing in the Bible that gives you an impression that, Joseph was just loaded with credit cards and stuff like that. So makes a place where she can have her child, okay, in the stable. Again, responds to another angel, okay, or the same angel twice. I don't really know how many angels got involved here. But, he got the message from the angel, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to take on Mary as your wife. Okay, she's going to have a child. It's the Son of God. And so he was courageous right there. All right? Then he was courageous when they're in Bethlehem, the baby's born, and an angel comes and says, this child is in danger. You're going to be killed. You got to get him out of here. Go to Egypt. Oh, man. I mean, another ridiculous imagery of Joseph is the one that portrays him as old. I don't know where that came from. Maybe because he was already passed by the time Jesus started his public ministry. I don't know. But anyway, old guys, don't get up in the middle of the night and trudge off to Egypt, okay? Anyway, and weak men don't do that either, okay? To go to a foreign country where you don't know the language, you don't have the money that they use, you don't know the customs, you don't have anything, and to set up a family there, okay? That's pretty courageous. And then he waits for the instructions of when it's safe to go back. And the angel tells him, go back. And what happens is he gets word that the new Herod, the Herod's son, I guess, that is in charge, is more violent than the one that was going to kill Jesus. And yet he still says, well, God is telling me to go. He goes, but he doesn't go back to Jerusalem or Bethlehem. He goes to Nazareth instead. But still, just knowing the coast is not completely clear here. There is another violent king in place. He goes and trusts that God is going to be with him. Okay? And then there was all the other journeys that they took going to Jerusalem for all the feasts and stuff that they would make. The man was a traveler. All right? The man went around and, made trips and traveled. He was courageous in every way. A great role model for you. So I love the sense. I mean, I live out of my car. My mission is to bring the gospel, to bring Jesus to as many people as possible. And I don't even have an office. This is not being filmed in my office. This is, I guess, my bedroom, which is also my office. I got a computer here and nothing fancy, but I really work out of my car. Any place I've ever been a youth minister, I never had an office. Even if I had an entire house that was a youth ministry house for about 18 years, I never had an office in that house. It was, I was just on the road. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to be a traveler through life. It may not be as crazy as me operating out of my car, but you are meant to have adventures in life. Don't let them domesticate you. Don't let them, make you soft in this world. Okay, don't let that side of yourself rule you. When you have God with you, there is no end to the adventures that you can participate in. Okay, In a few moments, you're going to meet my friend Mike Foley, who is also, I consider, an adventurer, okay, and very courageous. And I hope between the two of us, we inspire you to live your life to the fullest and to see Joseph as an adventurous ally, courageous ally for yourself as you journey through life. God bless you. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Okay, welcome to the episode number 2 in the Manpower series of The Journey of a Man. And it's being made in 2021, the year of St. Joseph. And we're using the different aspects of manhood that Joseph kind of models. And for each episode, I'm having a conversation with a guy that I respect. So this is about the courage of a man. The man needs to just be himself. My friend Mike Foley goes way back. I was his 8th grade teacher, and we have been best of friends ever since. We've had adventures together, and he is an adventurous person, a traveler, and he's somebody that, what do you call it? I guess you would say he walks the walk, okay? So Mike, it's an honor to have you as part of this series, which I hope is going to inspire a lot of men to be more men of God and to just take their journey in life to the next level. So I love so much about the work that you do and, you know, how you model being a modern man of God. Yeah, where do you want to get started? You want to talk about your work? You work
Sure.
the same high school in Brooklyn for many, many years now in a lot of different roles. Why don't you start off talking about that?
Sure. Well, I mean, it all started really, I mean, your class in 8th grade was just such a great experience. And, you know, the idea of having a male role model, I think makes a huge difference. I think it's something that young men really need. And when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, my 8th grade teacher, who was you, really made a difference. And you were part of the inspiration for me to decide to go into teaching and to begin the career that I have had for a long time now. And I remember applying for jobs, and then I got lucky enough to get an interview at Bishop Lachlan High School in Brooklyn. And thank God, because I had taught religion at Our Lady of Lourdes as a CCD teacher. They saw that on the resume. They needed a religion teacher. I was applying for social studies position, and they hired me, being that I had done that. So you had a lot to do with where I'm at now. And my work with the kids at Bishop Lachlan has been amazing. You know, certainly when you start a career, you don't know where it's going to go. I didn't know whether I'd be at Lachlan for a year, 2 years. And of course, God was calling me to do. And obviously, over 30 years later, I'm still there. I love it there. I love working with the kids. It's really an inspirational place. I feel like we're all kind of on the same team there, where we really work to bring the kids to God and to understanding what Jesus really wants for them. And of course, the high school years, that's never clear. It's for most kids, they're not sure. They have so many questions. But I feel blessed to be part of that with them, part of that journey. So it's been great.
Yeah, and you you were never the kind of person that like teaches and the day ends at 3:00 and you're out the door. You've coached volleyball.
Sure.
and talk a little bit about your being a moderator of the LaSallians.
Sure. So early on in my time there, I was invited by the principal, Brother James, to become the moderator of a group called the LaSallian Youth Group. And its motto is faith, service, and community. And these are students, and again, anyone at Lachlan can join, so it was open to everyone. Students who were really dedicated to taking time out of their busy day to pray together, to be there in prayer for those who needed that, to build community, which would mean spending time together doing different icebreakers and fun games just to get to know each other well. And that's really how family gets built, is by taking time with people and sharing what you're all about and listening. to who they are. And then the other big piece of it is service. So going out into the community to, whether it be going to a nursing home, to sing songs for the elderly, or, out in the streets working with the homeless, bringing sandwiches to homeless folks, working with little kids, tutoring, whatever it might be, is an opportunity to make a difference in the world. So hearing that was an option for me, I jumped right at it because I think giving back is so important. And so I've been privileged to do that. And another great part of that is the retreats. You've done a whole bunch of retreats for Lachlan. So thank you for all that. But the idea of, again, using that time to grow together and to try to figure out what God wants from each of the young people that I work with. It's been great.
Yeah. Now, I could be wrong, but I would think through that LaSallian group, probably your wildest adventure would be that trip you made to Africa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of the people viewing these videos probably have never been to Africa, maybe have no desire to go to Africa. I have no idea, but you went.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about what it was like to have that adventure.
Yep, absolutely. So we had been raising money for a school called St. Mary's Boys Secondary School in Kenya. It's also a LaSallian school, so we're a LaSallian school of the LaSallian Christian Brothers. And for years we were raising money, and I realized that, we're doing all this work. We get occasional pictures of these kids, which is great, but wouldn't it be great to actually go and visit so that the students from Brooklyn would get the experience of hanging out with a bunch of kids who are also at a LaSallian Catholic high school across the world and get a sense of who they are. And so the journey began. The trip was planned 2 separate times, canceled both times, one because of 9/11 and the other was because of a war that was happening. And so that it didn't happen. And I was starting to think, well, this is probably done. But I just felt, let me try one more time. And I swear it was the last time I was going to do it. And the pieces just fell together. And off we went. We were able to do it. Obviously, the students were nervous. Some of them had never even been on a plane, and they're traveling across to Kenya. But it was an amazing experience where we got a chance to be with some students who certainly, when it comes to material stuff, are very poor. They don't have much. They come from a lot of the poorest villages, and they're lucky enough to get into St. Mary's. And a lot of the folks at St. Mary's actually were kids who grew up on the streets. Their parents had either died from AIDS, or a lot of times it's tribal warfare going on. And so you're talking about a lot of kids who are orphans. And St. Mary's took them in when they were little. And obviously it's a high school, so they wouldn't go to school there, but they would shelter them, feed them. They would go to school in the community for elementary school, and then eventually be students at St. Mary's. So just being in the presence of people who were so nurturing and loving was an awesome experience. And the coolest thing was my kids were thinking, boy, it's going to be really interesting to meet these students because they're probably really different than we are. And the best part was after a week of spending time together, they walked back saying, wow, we are so similar. Kids from all the way over there, coming from a different culture, et cetera, different country, they're just like we are. And that was such a gift to me to see the connections that were made. It's an amazing adventure. And, again, I was all God because, like I said, it got canceled twice. And I was thinking, this is done. But I stuck with it, and thank God it happened. And it was an amazing experience. And we're working to get back. Actually, we were supposed to go back this past June. But obviously with COVID happening, it didn't happen. But hopefully once things clear in a year or two, we'll be able to go back again.
Yeah. Traveling is, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Yes, you had the advantage, like also when I've been to Africa, on the East Coast and the West Coast, in both cases, I was in countries where they spoke English.
Okay.
And I think the country you went to was the similar case. So we didn't have a language barrier like I do when I go to South America and Central America.
Right.
But you've got the language, the customs, money. There's so many things that go into, and the things that St. Joseph definitely had to deal with when he had to up and move the family over to Egypt,
Sure.
Different religion, different culture. People are different but similar. Good point. That was a great lesson for you and your kids to learn.
And one of the coolest things was, I mean, before this point, each year, maybe Lachlan raised about $5,000 to $6,000 for St. Mary's, which over there, that goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
The year we returned, because the kids were the ones now talking to the other students saying, let me tell you about what I saw, who I learned about. The year we returned, we raised $42,000. So we went from $6,000 to $42,000 because the kids were just so impressed. They were moved and they wanted to do something more. So they were able to get a lot of new computers, do a lot more building of the buildings over there. A lot of great stuff happened because of this trip. So that was a really cool thing.
That's great. That's great. Hey, listen, speaking of trips, I think one of the things I will always be in awe of you for was when there was the whole border crisis in the United States, which it's not over by any stretch of the imagination, but there was a real crisis point one summer recently, and you just like, I got to help. And you got yourself on a plane and just went out there and said, I'm going to find some way to make a difference. So talk a little bit about that kind of an adventure, that kind of a, gutsy move to try and affect some difference with your life.
Sure. So, I mean, it was a challenging time when that first was being advertised on the news and being reported on. And it was just so frustrating and upsetting to see the visuals of that. And I realized that, again, being an educator, I'm blessed with the fact that the summers, obviously, I have time. And I felt the need to do something. I called 12 different places in an attempt to get some volunteer opportunity. 6 never got back to me. The 6 that did basically said, if you're not a lawyer or a doctor, we really can't use you. One place said, you know what, maybe we can use you to help file things in our law office. So that didn't sound too hopeful. And then when I wasn't hearing back from some of the other places, I just realized, you know what, let me just go. And that took kind of a real leap of faith. I said, let me just hop on a plane and head on down. I'll get myself a cheap hotel and I'll see what I can do. And by doing that, I ended up working with a place that Catholic Charities is associated with in McAllen. And I walked in and they didn't know who I was. I hadn't done any application or anything. So the first person said, sorry, if you didn't apply, we can't use you. I just kept hanging around. And they were like, why is this guy still here? I was just being persistent. And eventually the woman said, you know what? All right, the director's going to be here in a few hours. If you want to see, you can talk to him, but I don't think he's going to let you do anything. Well, sure enough, he comes. I introduced myself, and he says, you know what? If you want to volunteer, why don't you join us? So I got lucky with that. It was just a leap of faith. And then I had to kind of consider, what am I going to be doing here? And sometimes in life, you're called to do the dirty work. So my task was to take care of the showers and the toilets. And that's where they put me. And for me, I was thinking about these families, okay, and all the families I've met, amazing people, beautiful people who just cared. And the parents wanted to make sure the kids were okay. That's who I met. And I was picturing them journeying for hundreds of miles with no showers, having to use going to the bathroom behind trees, etc. So I thought to myself, if this is what I'm going to do, then I'm going to make these the nicest showers and bathrooms that I can. And sometimes that's what you do. It's, the kind of the nitty gritty, down on my hands and knees, scrubbing things to try to make it as good as I could for those folks. And the guy who ran the place basically said, the key word we use here is dignity. That these folks need to be treated with dignity because they have not felt that for much of their lives. And here at Catholic Charities, that's what we're going to do. And that kind of stuck with me. And I thought, you know what? As I'm grueling away doing some rough work, I want to do it because these folks deserve it. They deserve that dignity. So it was just such a blessing. I met the language barrier was there. My Espanol is not very good, but I did my best. But I just met some of the coolest people. And sometimes you don't need words. You can just be with someone. And you know that you're making a difference. So I thank God that I had that opportunity. I was very frightened, to be perfectly honest, because I didn't know what I was going to do. I just showed up. It was a part of the world I'd never been. And I said, you know what? Let me just give this a shot and see what happens. And sure enough, it was one of the best experiences of my life. And then the following year, my wife, Barb, also joined me. And we both went down together and were able to do another year of work. And then this past summer, of course, didn't happen because of COVID. So, but it was amazing.
Wow. That's such a great example of the kind of thing we see in the life of St. Joseph, which is just like you're following the inspiration of God and you're going where he's leading you. And wow, to just be turned away from places and just be persistent. Wow, that's, that was you've had some pretty far away experiences. Talk a little about how a guy can become more courageous in his everyday life, on a journey of everyday life, just to, be more bold about following the lead of where God puts you and what he has on the horizon for you.
So, I mean, for me, I think it's important just to be aware of things other than yourself. If you are tuned into humanity, there's a lot of need out there. And that doesn't mean having to get on a plane and going across the globe. There's tons of opportunities to just do little things that make a difference in people's lives, whether it be holding a door open, getting involved in a local soup kitchen, whatever it might be. They're all right there. For me, the truth is, I realize that I miss opportunities all the time. And that's just me being honest. I fall short a lot. And then I think back, what a shame, because I know I could have made a difference there. I could have helped that person. I could have been better. If someone was watching me, they didn't see a good example right there. And so that's happened frequently in my life. And then I pray over it and I kind of say, why am I here? And then I try again the next day. But I think it's important to realize that you're not always going to, be successful or be aware or do the right thing. I know that I've fallen short a lot. And my thing is, you just, again, like I was persistent down there at the border. Same thing in everyday life. Be persistent and just keep trying to be aware of what the needs of others might be. So that happens for me in Brooklyn at Bishop Laughlin. It happens for me right here in New Hyde Park where I live. Just, going along, trying to make a difference. It really matters. COVID has made it tricky because a lot of the simple things I would do, I saw a woman at Stop and Shop the other day, and she had it looked like 30 or 40 cases of soda. I didn't think parties were happening these days, but she just had mounds of cases. So I went over and I said, can I please help you with that? But I didn't have gloves. I did have my mask, but I could tell she was uncomfortable because of COVID. So normally, I don't think I would just hop in and just start helping her, but there have been so many restrictions. So it's been a little more tricky in terms of making sure we stay connected. But at the very least, I think she felt like, what? This guy was looking out. He had the right intention in mind. But again, it's just about trying to do those kinds of things.
Yeah, you bring out COVID. This is being made in 2021, and in this time, it's not just COVID, the disease of COVID in our society. It's the rudeness, the incivility in the discourse of human interaction that has certainly been in motion. So when you talked before about the importance of treating another human being with dignity, I mean, I hope in the near future they look back on this video and say, what the heck were those guys talking about? What was the problem? Mm-hmm. I hope it's something that becomes corrected, that people dig their heels in and just decide, like, no, we need to treat each other with more respect and dignity, and respect that dignity. And why did they ever sink that low?
Yeah.
Well, we certainly have.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. I think it's, something that we need to constantly be on top of and aware of, and, and be better to each other, and not be judgmental, and that can be hard. I've done that myself. And, it's important not to let that happen. And just to be present. I find that the most important thing in leading a life of God is to be present for people. Sometimes it's not about talking, like the famous, St. Francis, go out and preach the gospel, and when necessary, use words. I believe firmly in that it's got to be about actions, mostly to be there for people. I know at Laughlin, I love just providing the campus ministry space where kids can just hang out and be themselves, and just cherish that. So I think those things are important, just to accept people where they're at and appreciate them, and look for the good things. I think we become in a place where it's easy to say, here's what I don't like about you, or what I don't like about your style or your political beliefs. And yet, if we take a look, again, we're more similar than we are different. In what ways can we say, what I like about you is this, and go from there.
Mm-hmm. That's good advice. That's good. That's a good insight. Do you have any recommendations for me with my road rage issues?
I think I've been there myself a little bit.
I've never gotten out of the car and pummeled anybody, but man, I feel the rudeness that you see. People are either overly cautious, making you crazy in that way, or just crazy, risky, disrespectful, reckless kind of driving.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Stay centered and just realize, okay.
Let that go. Yep. I have Barb to keep me in check. So when I get frustrated, she's there to say, relax. We'll get there.
That's great. Listen, you just like St. Joseph are a great teacher, Mike. I know from what I've seen all these years of your work at the school, you really are a Jesus figure in those kids' lives, and you've been faithful to that. You've been really faithful to that. So thank you for sharing. Any other insights you'd like to leave us with for the man watching this video? Just
I would say that if you're blessed with the opportunity for fatherhood, and I've been so lucky that I have a son, and that I cherish more than anything. I think it's the most important job in the world is to be a parent, whether it be a mother or a father. And I think that my experience over the years working, with kids a long time, is that very often the pain that they feel is because of a father either not being there at all, or not being good to them. So certainly for the young men out there who might be listening to this, if you have that opportunity to take it as sacred, and to cherish it. And that's why I again feel blessed that I have had that opportunity. I've made plenty of mistakes along the way. My son can attest to that. But it's been a beautiful gift for me to be able to be a dad. And again, like I said, I think for me, the most important thing is really the presence, the being there. He likes presents also, as in Christmas presents or whatever, but the idea of just being there as much as you can. And for some men, it's hard because of jobs, etc. They can't always spend the time. But even if it's 3 hours on a Thursday afternoon, Sundays are, dad days, whatever, when you are with your kid, just to make them kind of put the spotlight on them and, treasure them. And it's made my life better. This great gift that God gave me to be a dad. So that's the only other thing I would say in terms of the journey. Speaking of adventures, parenthood is a real adventure. I would say just to cherish that if you have that chance, and, make sure that you pray a lot and you turn things over to God sometimes. But to be there as a dad has been the greatest gift that I've been given in my life. As much as I love Locke and love my kids, being a dad for me has always been number one.
That's a great message, Mike. And hey, thanks for ending up with that. Thanks for taking the time to do this. I certainly enjoyed it. I'm sure everybody watching this is going to gain something from it. Keep shining, bro. Go out there.
Thanks, Tony. Yep, love you. Appreciate it, man. Yep.
Take care.
Yep.
Hail, guardian of the Redeemer, spouse of the Blessed Virgin Mary. To you God entrusted His only Son. In you Mary placed her trust. With you Christ became man. Blessed Joseph, to us too show yourself a father and guide us in the path of life. Obtain for us grace, mercy, and courage, and defend us from every evil. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.